Alright, Street Fighter 6 has been out for a month now, and we've already seen a lot of developments. I've never seen a game approach competitive optimization this quickly, but with a $2 million prize pool on the line, I can't say it doesn't make sense. Along the way, we've seen some crazy things just over this last month, and I want to talk about them today. We've had a month to play the game, we've had a huge major tournament in CEO and Red Bull Kumite, broken tech, and we've had a ton of hot takes circulating through the internet. Try to make sense of the current state of Street Fighter 6 and help us start on a journey to figure out the truth. I'm interested in doing something like this every few months after majors and milestones in Street Fighter 6's life, so if you enjoy, be sure to subscribe and leave a like on the video so I know to make more of these in the future.
This is gonna kill, no doubt about it! That was the highest I've ever seen!
Before I get started, I just want to bring up some context for why I wanted to make this video in the first place. Pretty much, this headline started it all. I've made videos in the past on similar subjects, but obviously wanted to wait until we had some kind of substantial data before I made any kind of claim like this. So, obviously they got me to click and read this article, and I've got to say, what was waiting really made my head spin.
Oh, people can come up with statistics to prove anything can't. 40% of all people know that.
To save you a click, the article used character usage data to justify saying that certain characters are strong or weak, and therefore, most players should avoid the weak ones and flock to the strong ones. Weird take, no idea why they'd say that, especially since character usage has nothing to do with the character's strength in actuality. Unfortunately, the game has just come out and we're all still settling into the meta, so I can't say for certain that the writer of this article is objectively wrong, but I'm gonna try anyway. It'll probably be another month before Capcom gives us the ranked data for win rates of characters, but we do have the character usage, which is what this article is basing its claim off of. So, if you missed it, here's the character usage data for Street Fighter 6's first month. Dhalsim and Blanka are at the bottom with neither cracking 30,000 players. Dhalsim doesn't even crack 20,000. Surprisingly, Guile is the least played character from those available from the beta, and E Honda rounds out the bottom 5 with 36,000. There isn't too much to say about the middle of the pack, but Luke ranking so low was surprising to me considering how strong he is and how he's the main character of Street Fighter 6. Then Mena and Marisa start us off with the 70,000 player threshold, making them the most popular newcomers to the franchise, which is awesome. And lastly, the list is rounded off with Juri, Cammy, Ryu, and Ken respectively, Ken being the only character to pass not only 100,000 players as of recording, but 120,000. That certainly tells us a lot about character popularity, and admittedly, maybe a little bit about strength, but it's definitely not the whole picture.
There he is, getting in. Ooh, level 3, it's over.
Now, if we were to go off of character usage to determine character strength, Dhalsim was the 14th least played character around the time of Capcom Cup this year for Street Fighter V, and yet, he's widely considered one of the strongest in the game competitively. He also ranked 7th in the entire cast for his strength in ranked matches across all ranks and all of the cast, making him a top 10 pick for playing online. Interesting. The other character this article lists is Blanka, who I can't say much about at the moment. He wasn't represented heavily in Street Fighter V, he was very middle of the pack, except, oh wait, there might be something I can say about him. Yeah, he was just used in Grand Finals of CEO, which is likely the second biggest major tournament we'll see for Street Fighter 6 this year. He didn't make it as a solo character, Mena RD was using him as a counterpick, but counterpicks winning majors usually make bigger headlines than the character who actually did the heavy lifting anyways. And this isn't just one publication that seems to have this idea. While perusing Reddit, I also came across this tier list. I have no idea if it's bait or not, since an incredible amount of work went into making it, but I'm not even going to say much about the list itself. What caught my eye was another small tidbit about Blanka. The reason he is B tier is because nearly all of his specials put him airborne, allowing players with good reaction time to counter with their anti-air special. This iteration of Blanka requires high execution, making him less desirable among pros. So, obviously I can point to CEO again to show that high execution has pretty much never stopped any pro player from using a character to perform well. Pros are pros for a reason, and high execution, especially with the resources we have today, aren't the barrier to entry people think they might be, especially for pros. But there's just one last bit of that article I want to address. The article stated that the most used characters are some of the best in the current meta. But is that true? We've been forced to question if the unpopular ones are weak, but how does that hold up for the popular ones being strong? Before I dive in, remember, this is one tournament. I'm not making a sweeping judgment, but if we want to talk about the state of Street Fighter 6, this is where we have to start. In CEO, this is the distribution of the top 192 players. JP dominated the bracket with 19 of him going around, and there were at least 17 Kens, which makes sense considering he's the most popular character online. Marisa and Manon were tied for 13, but they placed 6th in terms of bracket popularity in the top 192. Ryu fell all the way down to 13th place with only 6 people using him. So the most popular characters online aren't necessarily making it the furthest in bracket if this is how they show up for top 192. Well, aside from Juri. Juri is currently the 4th most popular character online, and she was right under Manon and Marisa at 7th place in popularity for top 192. But the crazy part is that there were 6 Juri players in top 24, with 1 player using her as a secondary. That means 1 in 4 players of the top 24 use Juri, which is pretty nuts for a game as new and balanced as Street Fighter 6. There were 2 Manon players, 3 Camis, and 1 Ken. But that was it for the top 5, with Ryu and Marisa nowhere to be found. That doesn't seem to bode well for the idea that the most popular are the strongest in the current meta, but it's just one tournament and you really can't say it either way. But I can say that in the bottom 5 most popular, there were 3 Guiles, 1 Lily, and 1 Honda, as well as a Blanka, meaning 4 of the bottom 5 were represented, and only 3 out of the top 5 were represented in the top 24 of CEO, and one of them, the second least popular character, won the whole thing. Speaking of, this is Mena RD's first major win outside of any kind of invitational event, and yes, I'm calling Capcom Cup an invitational because it's not an open bracket competition. Mena fought his way through Nephew, Idom, Punk, and Nephew again to take the CEO title in his first Premier Street Fighter tournament. For a bit more perspective, Mena has only a 30% set win rate over Idom in tournaments ranging from online locals to majors, but if we look at how they fare against each other in just majors, Idom has beaten Mena RD every single time in a head-to-head battle. In fact, Mena actually struggles to get more than a game most of the time, but at CEO 2023 in Street Fighter 6, he turned that completely on its head and won with a swift 3-0 using loop. He's also got a losing record against Punk overall and took him down convincingly as well. Sure, this is just the first major of the game's life, but Mena intends to be the best and shows no sign of slowing down his drive to improve. Him picking Blanka should show people just how powerful that character is, even if he's ugly and annoying to fight. So, while I can't say this disproves or proves anything, I can say we should take our time before hopping on assigning worth to any characters in a game nobody fully understands yet. But you know what I'll never understand? Some of the other hot takes I've seen circulating out there, like, wow.
Y'all smoking crack! Something is wrong with you people!
There's one though that does hold some collective weight to it, and I've seen community outcry against it, so I want to talk about one particular take. JP's counter. It's a seemingly busted move. It doesn't technically lose to anything. Throws, strikes, overheads, lows, etc. They all get countered, and for many, this isn't fun to deal with or fight. I didn't think it was either at first. It just seems to slow the game down and add stress to the players fighting JP. But then I realized, we've seen something like this before in the FGC. UI Goku had insane amounts of counters and invincible reversals on release that made it very difficult to actually press offense on him. At first, people called for bans, but eventually some setups and counterplay were allowed to be developed over time. I thought at first that JP's counter was broken and dumb, but after some more time messing around with the counterplay, a lot of creative answers have shown themselves. I mean, hell, look at Red Bull Kumite. Those versed in the matchup had answers to the problem, and I honestly tip my hat to Capcom for forcing players to view the move abstractly. It seems busted at first glance, but it's not like things like this have never existed in the past. Look at how creative these responses are. You can try to zip past the crystals, you can armor through them, or you can just go for a trade to reset your own pressure. The solutions might not seem amazing, but they're there, and you need to consider every resource. On the back of that statement, Big Bird won Red Bull Kumite against the most prestigious Street Fighter players in the world, and it didn't even look close for most of his matches. The character he did it with, Marisa, until now was considered to be mid at best, and yet she dominated the strongest players in the world? I don't know, seems sketch to me. The important takeaway here is to understand that we just do not know. Things we think to be true will be disproven tomorrow, and that's the beauty of a new fighting game, especially one this big and deep. Keep having fun, keep learning new things, and most importantly, keep an open mind. That's all I've got for now. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.